Beginning, we have a very full hour, so I'm just going to get right into this and just go ahead and introduce our first speaker, who is Daniel Amgarten, who is the co-founder and CEO of CampusB. And he is going to talk to us about best practices for connecting international students with local students through the CampusB's internship program. And CampusB is actually a certified B Corp based in Brazil.
Okay, thank you, Emily. So thank you very much, Jessica, for keeping us informed about the academics. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'll be very quick to present about it. So as mentioned, I'm co-founder and CEO of CampusB. So we are a certified B Corp since 2017, based in São Paulo. And today I'm here on behalf of the Global Learning Collective. So the Global Learning Collective is a group of 4 institutions that work with international education, one in Africa, one in Europe, one in Asia, and us in South America. So when we got together to create the Global Learning Collective, we always wanted to do a global program. So imagine a summer program that students could go a week in each continent or something like that. And we realized that this would not be so feasible and not so sustainable either. But when the pandemic came and we had to move our programs to online, we thought that it would be much easier to make a global program while online. So this program was created last year, and we started operating that in January. It was a 4-week program, project-based internship. And what we did, there were in total 34 students, 13 nationalities, 9 universities from 5 continents, and also 5 organizations that were hosting those projects. So a good thing that I consider is as a good practice is that students, they were focused on their continent, on their project, but every week they got to meet everyone that was working on the project as well. We use the UN SDG as a connector of all the problems because we know that we have world challenge, and we found that that way we could be very well connected. So students had every week a meeting with the company to see if they were on track. They had mentorship, and besides that, they were together every week to share the experiences and the differences of their projects according to the continent and to the country they were based. So we make sure that every group had at least one local student that could understand also the reality where the company was within. And then we had a very good, a lot of good testimonials. And this one here said that this program made her feel confident in working in the area of sustainability. And she was also very happy and proud that she could assist a company. Some of the companies were also B Corp. For example, the one based in Brazil is Raízes, which is a company that worked with subscription of organic food here in São Paulo, and they just launched in Rio de Janeiro last month. So I think that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. You actually came in under time. I have the unfortunate job of being the bad cop in this session and cutting everybody off at exactly 4 minutes. And I forgot to mention in my fluster a minute ago that I will, if you are going, if you hit the 3.5 minute mark, I will just say you're at your 30-second warning. So thank you, Daniel. Next up, we have Maria Ballesteros Sola and Nina Magomedova, and they are both assistant professors. Maria is at Cal State, Channel Islands. We all have heard from her already today. And then we have Nina, who is from UIC Spain, and they're going to present their best practices for experiential learning, international student engagement, teams, project-based learning, digital literacy, a whole bunch of other things. So take it away, Maria. Maria and Nina, thank you.
Yeah, and Nina couldn't join us at the end, so I'm sorry you have to deal with my accent for another 4 minutes, so I will be very, very brief, I promise. What we actually put together for this semester is what is called a COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning. And the genesis of this collaboration came from actually the impossibility to travel to other countries. I usually take students to Spain. I have a fantastic service learning project in Barcelona organized and got canceled. It's like, okay, what do we do now? So I partnered with this university in Barcelona, and I said 2 universities, 2 continents, 9 hours different, and it was 2 different courses and 2 professors. We still try to align, obviously, our learning outcomes and our activities, but starting in the second half of the semester, our students, roughly 50 students, met 4 different social enterprise. I said 4 + 1 because one of the project actually was the idea of one of my students. He himself has been a homeless, so he wanted to really use this class to explore the idea of a hotel that could hire homeless people. It's sort of a WISE, but the other 4 companies were established social enterprise, 2 in Barcelona and 2 in California. And they presented the students with 8 different challenges, 2 per per social enterprise. And some of the challenges were about the introduction of a new product line, scaling. Some of them wanted to actually move away from donations and grants as a major source of income, and they wanted to explore an earned income strategy or social enterprise. So they were given this challenge. The goal was that in mixed teams, we roughly have 2 students from Spain, 2 students from Barcelona. During 7 weeks, they were going to draft an impact business model canvas for these companies addressing that specific challenge. Obviously, we have different deliverables. It was an scaffolded approach to the project, and some things were beautifully and worked really well. We end up using Google folders to organize all the information. And we also use a Slack for the teams to communicate. And we learned later that some students decided to not use Slack because in Slack we were controlling, or they thought we were controlling the conversation. So they default to another tool. They use WhatsApp and Concord. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but a few things worked really well. They develop project management skills, they develop intercultural competencies. Some of my students have never left California. So to give them the opportunity to actually collaborate with students 10,000 kilometers away was very enriching. They didn't know much about Spain or Barcelona for that matter. So that really helped them. Of course, for the first half of the semester, we were discussing cases, back to the teaching cases, but what they were experiencing working with these companies is actually real entrepreneurs, right? And I think that tangible element of everything we have seen in class is actually real, and the struggles and the ambiguity that the social entrepreneurs have to deal with was very enlightening for them. And some of them, for what I have seen in the Slack channels, they are making connections and they're planning to visit each other. I don't know if that will happen, but they're excited to continue the conversation. The challenge, communication, language and cultural differences, different level of motivation. It was a semester from hell for many. So I have students that drop the course in the middle. And of course, my colleague and I, we have different instructional approaches. We are writing a paper right now. We collected data before we launched the project and after, and we are trying to figure out if actually this approach to experiential learning increase those cultural competencies. Stay tuned for that.
Awesome, thank you, Maria. Okay, next up we have Pablo Estevez. He is a director of university programs at Mzingo, sorry?
Mzingo, it's correct.
Mzingo, yeah, and Mzingo U. Yes, and he's going to give us some details about the best practices for a model of summer experiential learning that combines immersive project-based work, deep introspection, leadership development, cultural awareness, and team building, and especially highlighting and giving us some details about how they converted from a very high touch in-person model to 100% remote experience.
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. My name is Pablo. I'm the Executive Director at MZingo, and I'm also an adjunct faculty for IE University in Madrid, Spain. I'm currently in Madrid. We have an amazing storm right now. We are a learning design firm. We are a social enterprise, and since 2015, a certified B Corp. We started in 2010. We have worked with academic institutions and students to inspire responsible leadership, prepare them, equip them with skills, and connect business and society. In 2014, we won the Ashoka U Cordes Innovation Award for an earlier version of one of our summer programs. And as Emily was mentioned, our programs are rooted in three big buckets. We have LEAVE, and for us, the LEAVE model includes immersion. Before the pandemic, we were doing literal immersions. So we would go to Johannesburg, we would go to Lima, Peru, we would go to Rio de Janeiro, we would go to Madrid or Barcelona or Amsterdam. And we would develop cultural awareness through that immersion. Last year in March, we had a group of 27 MBA students in Johannesburg that in 48 hours we had to send back home on planes. And since then, we've been doing mostly remote programs. Same length, 6 weeks, 2 weeks, different models. We have the Learn, where we talk about social impact. We are project-based programs with some sessions, and most of our field partners tend to be either social enterprises or B Corps. We also work with community-based organizations and local NGOs. For example, we have worked with CREAS, one of the impact investors in Spain, and we helped them become one of the first B Corp or certified B Corp impact investors in Europe. And the third part of our models is the LEAD model, where we have a very robust leadership development curriculum with interpersonal skills, team building, reflection, introspection. And we work with a variety of academic institutions, USC, Marshall, Cornell, McGill University in Canada, Bentley, Princeton, Notre Dame. Also with other international schools outside of the United States or North America, like Universidad del Pacífico in Lima, Peru, Wits University in Johannesburg, and of course here in Madrid, IE University. And since 2010, we have had the opportunity to work with over 2,400 students, 53 countries, 65 organizations. And for us, this transition since March of last year has taught us a way of creating these blended programs that have both the cultural immersion done remotely and then added later on the opportunity to travel for those students that can travel. We have also developed different formats for our clients in the United States to offer them shorter format programs that are done remotely. And we hope that starting in next year, January of 2022, we will be a design firm, a learning design firm that can do both in person and remote with asynchronous content and additional tech platforms. I think that with that, I'll end up and thank everybody again for the invitation.
Perfect, thank you, Pablo. Great, next up we have, I'm not actually sure that she is here yet. She had a very small window when she could join us today. Nell, are you here? If not, we can come back to her. Okay, we'll come back. Megan Buchter, I know you're here, I saw you. Are you okay to go next?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, awesome. So Megan is the director at Case Western University and the Fowler Center for Business as an agent of World Benefit. And so she's going to talk to us about best practices around the Aim to Flourish program. It's an experiential learning activity that is the world's first higher education curriculum that incorporates the UN Sustainable Development Goals and business as an agent of World Benefit.
Okay, thank you, Emily. So like Emily said, I'm Megan Buchter. I'm the director of the Fowler Center for Business as an Agent of World Benefit at the Weatherhead School of Management at Case Western Reserve University, which is in Cleveland, Ohio. And we have a program called Aim to Flourish that is used all over the world. So we're used by over 140 professors at over 100 universities. And like I have bolded And in all capital letters here, it's totally free. So this is a bit of a pitch, but the program is free to use, and we're happy to help you get set up and use in your courses as you like. So Aim to Flourish is, again, free, flexible, professor-facilitated curriculum. Someone else on this call, Daniel Aller, had actually shared a link to our professor resources page. I had reshared that. So on our professor resources page, we have a variety of resources that will help you teach your students about the UN Global Goals, about business for good, and about appreciative inquiry. All of those resources are really flexible. Ultimately, Aim to Flourish involves a student assignment where students interview business leaders or social entrepreneurs about their organizations and then write a story that gets published on our site. Students can do the assignment individually or in groups, so that's also very flexible and very adaptable to your classes. Like I said, a global community, we are used all over the world. We have a strong, I don't want to say following, but a strong group of faculty that use Aim to Flourish in Latin America. And so even though this is my first opportunity to kind of talk to B academics, we actually work with Academia Bay quite frequently. And the faculty that they work with, they encourage them to use Aim to Flourish and to have their students write about B corporations. Another way that I want to mention that Aim to Flourish has been incorporated into classes since this was discussed in an earlier session, at St. Joseph's University, the faculty there that have B Impact teams have their students do the Aim to Flourish assignment at the beginning of the B Impact team kind of semester or assignment, and then go on to work on the rest of the B Impact team. So we fit very nicely in a variety of ways. Like I said, the student assignment involves students interviewing business leaders, finding stories about what businesses are doing for good. They write up the story. We have a whole workflow on our site for the students to write the story. It's reviewed by the professors. We review it. As long as the company's okay with it, we publish it on our site. And then we do a celebration every year called the Flourish Prizes. And if you're interested in that, you can get more information on our website. I did share those links earlier in the chat. And so I will be sticking around later for the happy hour. If anybody has any questions, we have a lot of resources on our website, or I'm happy to answer questions in the chat. But thank you so much for letting me present here and tell you about our program.
Thank you, Megan. Okay.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to go back now, and I think Nell has joined us now. Nell, are you here?
I am indeed.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your patience and flexibility on a tight schedule.
No problem whatsoever. So this is Nell DeBava, who is the founder and CEO of Inspiring Capital. And we're going to hear about some best practices for the spheres and fears of impact, which is a framework for leadership development within B Corps and other business organizations who are trying to be a force for good by identifying the impacts that they have in their work and in their lives. So, no.
Thank you so much. Really thrilled to be here. The tightness of schedule is that the Build New England is happening right now. So I just did a panel there. It's so funny that these two things overlap. And so the framework that I want to share, really, first of all, I'll say happy to dive deeper with anyone. 4 minutes is going to be really quick. There's three dimensions to what we do, but it has come out of our work initially with students, with MBA students specifically, starting in 2014 when we created our MBA Social Impact Fellowship, and somewhat accidentally built professional development alongside the projects that they were doing. Not so dissimilar, it sounds like, from some of what you're doing, Megan, which is so powerful and important to hear that people are still doing, because we've kind of gotten out of that business and now just do the training. So these spheres of impact and the fears that accompany them have emerged as a really helpful framework, particularly for MBA students and others of us, humans, not just students, who may not necessarily have a straightforward path to impact in their jobs, or not want that to be the only place that they're having impact. And so these spheres, as I'll walk through briefly, really just offer a spot to put everything that we do. We have yet to find something that we couldn't place on this dashboard. And so the idea of that is by mapping where you are in terms of having impact and how that ladders up to sense of purpose, you can better identify where you want to be, right? If you don't know where you are, how do you know what more impact you want to have? And I think that's where we see, especially a lot of students early in their career kind of flailing with, I want to have an impactful career, but what does that mean, right? And so this is proven with those MBAs to be a really useful grounding. So with that, knowing that this is a pretty advanced audience familiar with this, I'll spin through the 6 spheres pretty quickly. And they start with the self, right? That is very intentionally that kind of central cornerstone or foundation of the dashboard. And we're talking here about all the things that we do to have holistic well-being, mental, physical, mind, body, and spirit, and seeing that as the fundamental driver of any impact we're going to have, right? It's a version of the now overused oxygen mask metaphor, right? I worked in nonprofit for 10 years. I know very deeply that when we work too hard and burn ourselves out, we are not effectively doing service to anyone else around us. So that's the foundation. And then around the self is the second sphere of impact, which we talk about as family and friends. And so our idea here was that, this is a lot of unpaid, unrecognized work of raising children, of supporting friends, of caring for elders that also can have a lot of impact in the world that is often not recognized or measured or paid for. And so we call that out to students as well as they think about their career path and what matters. Externally, we can kind of spin through a bit more quickly because these are the things that people think of more, specifically your job, right? What are the tasks that you are paid or somehow compensated for doing on a day-to-day basis, whether that's cancer research or accounting, but perhaps as an accountant, you're actually able to track wage gaps between genders or races as your company, right? And so we really push students, MBAs in particular, to think about what impact those job roles could have, even if they don't look or feel so impacty to begin with. Secondly, the employer, maybe you're an accountant and you're not tracking wage gaps, but you're contributing to, some fabulous work that a company or a nonprofit is doing. Third is your community.
30 seconds. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We'll get there. Community is the non-formal ways outside of work. And then finally, money, what you buy, donate to, and invest in. We make it super clear to students, even student budgets count. You can still choose what you buy. So those are the spheres. Final piece that we could go into another time are the sectors on the outside, which help map, right? So you can do any of these things in the government, not-for-profit, social enterprise, or corporate spheres. And then we do use the SDGs to kind of quantify and identify exactly the impact for more advanced groups. We use other tools with corporate clients, but that's the framework. Super happy to follow up if that's useful to folks. And thank you for being flexible again. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nell. So next up we have Calvin Chung, who's one of our B Academics board members. He is an assistant professor of business at Mary Baldwin University, and he's going to share with us today some best practices for how to implement the B Corp concept into curriculum at the program level, including a model for an MBA program that's based on the B Impact Assessment.
So good afternoon, everyone. What I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce you our institution's experience, how we launched our MBA program 5 years ago that we tried to embed or implement the B for benefit concept, B Corp. Way before that, our business school were full of business professors who wanted to implement the sustainability within their disciplines. So we wanted to train our business students to be more socially responsible. We wanted to train our students more conscious and really aware of sustainability. So that's what we did. And when we tried to launch our MBA program, we don't want it to just provide just like traditional MBA program. So our dean trying to look at how we can create very unique MBA program that can create, that can train the future business graduate that consider the social societal needs. So we try to integrate this B impact assessment into the program. If you try to look at there, the half of the credits are actually the B impact assessments that has to do with the workers, community, customers, environment, and also the governance. And half of them is the business disciplines. Interestingly, when we created this program, like many people joined the program knowing that it is unique, it is a very special MBA program that is toward the 4 benefit concepts. And many of them also joined this program not knowing that this is very B impact or B Corp specific. But overall, we got a good feedback from the people. We had a good recruitment and we had a good interest, but at the same time, some people were not satisfied with this specific on the social, the society needs or just 4 benefit concepts. And one of the things that we did for this one, other than just implement the B impact assessment, we tried to use one case study, which was the wine company that we have created to make the business plan throughout their business classes, and also try to embed their like the case study in their the final project. So in my case, when I was teaching community engagement, I tried to ask people based on the case study what this company can do to create this the community engagement program. We did great for 3 years, but we had to change to the new program setting because we had a conflict with administrations. We had a conflict with the donor. They saying that it is too specific, not pulling a lot of people who might not be really interested in this 4 benefit concept. But still, we are carrying that, the 4 benefit concepts as one of our concentration as the sustainable enterprise. We have also further developed our business core revised stats, and we have added more concentration so that we can have more pool. So, but in the new MBA program, we are still using the similar format. We are using one case study that is coming from Darden Business School from UVA, University of Virginia, the impact makers, the Newman's own of management consulting, the case study, to make sure that we are trying to create our students to be more socially responsible and to become a more impact maker. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Great, we're doing really well on time. Thank you everyone for being so mindful of the time. Evan Green is next up along with Craig Ospo. I think you're both here. You're going to be presenting together. We've got both from the Portland State University School of Business. Evan is Assistant Director of DE&I Outreach, Director of the International Business Certificates and International Partnerships Program, and Craig Ospo is Adjunct Faculty of Marketing. And they are going to talk to us today about the Portland State University Summer Business Institute, which is an opportunity for high school students of color and those from culturally underserved and underrepresented backgrounds to learn from college faculty about B corporations, social responsibility, and sustainability.
Craig?
Yes, sir. I will jump right in. And Emily, thank you for that introduction. And you are correct. This is about high school students realizing that they too can attend college. And the purpose of the Summer Business Institute is to encourage that, obviously, because PSU, like many of you, believe diversity, cultural awareness, and the inclusion of all people is paramount for institutional impact and global change. Our focus is on students of color, Black, Indigenous, LGBTQIA+, disabled or undocumented. And the purpose of the program is to increase diversity in the business world by strengthening today's underrepresented business students. 2 critical aspects of the program that we focus on are getting these current high school students long before they decide if they can or cannot go to college, to realize that they can, that they have a voice, and that voice needs to be heard. Secondarily, we incite and inspire and influence that reality by instilling the B Corp mission of business as a force for good. Something great to do in a business school to help them understand that business is a force for good. We do that through a 5-day intensive program that has the students immersed in the college experience. All morning focused on Business 101 in a fun and engaging way, and all afternoon with business leaders and global business leaders. Fortunately, here in Portland, Nike, Adidas, Wieden+Kennedy, on, the many corporations we have here. And they learn from them their own college experience and how it influenced their careers. And then they're also mentored and coached by former and current PSU students who look like them and are experiencing the lifestyle that these students aspire to. It culminates with a Shark Tank. Many of you have programs like that. The students love to call it a Shark Tank, and they love the pitch. The pitch itself, pre-pandemic, is done in front of their parents, their family, all of the students in the wide open atrium, and they love that competition. More than winning the investment in their business pitch, what they win more than that is one credit in a accredited university that will transfer anywhere. And they win the opportunity of understanding they too can attend college, something maybe they thought coming into the program they couldn't. How do we do that or instill that in them? There are 2 benchmarks we focus on. One is they must develop during the time they're with us a business concept that focuses on solving a societal need or problem as they see it. And that business, for benchmark number 2, must be a for-profit business. That way, they have to determine how is it that we monetize this business and do so in a way that honors all, if you will. So that gives you an idea of the program. To sum it up, and maybe in the spirit of the students, I'll make my own pitch. This is a hugely successful program. So many of these students that didn't think they could attend college are, and many have already graduated. I'll pitch you on this. Imagine a world where every one of us on this call, every one of our brethren, just took 50 high school kids a year and showed them that they too have a path and they have a voice, and a voice that matters. In the United States of America alone, that would be 300,000 to 400,000 students who otherwise were thinking they wouldn't come to school. I thank you for your time, and I hope if any of you want to join us in this endeavor, you'll reach out to Evan and myself. And Evan, I'll let you finish and say.
Thank you. It's a wonderful program.
You have a few seconds if you'd like to say more.
No, I think that Craig really summed it up, but essentially I think this is really a way forward and utilizing the tenets of B Corps to really help educate and support the next generation of leaders to transform business. I think it's been wonderful for our students, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Min Han Ko. She is founder and strategic advisor of B Corp China. And she's going to talk to us today about their B Generation program and the BBB game that they have created. Min?
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. This is Min Ko calling from Shanghai, China. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, almost 4. So excuse me for all the dark things at the background. I'm very happy to introduce briefly about the B Generation program. B Lab China was actually established about 3 years ago. And when we started to promote the whole entire B Corp concept here in this country, we recognized there was a key challenges in terms of involving the businesses to be able to certify as a B Corp based on multiple reasons. So there was 3 very clear objectives that we wanted to achieve by launching the B Generation program. The first one was that recognizing the millennials or the younger students from in universities or in schools as the largest or one of the most influential stakeholders that has influence over the potential companies who might be become certified B Corps in the future. We wanted to engage them as soon as possible to be able to have that awareness as employees or future employees of these companies, as well as consumers who hold a lot of power to be able to make this kind of impact on the businesses to go more sustainable. And the second objective of the Beat Generation program was to be able to also open a new opportunity and a new way to be able to let the students to pursue looking for a job in a businesses where they also prioritize on a purpose and a mission, as many of the Chinese students actually do not think that it's an option or possibility that businesses can actually balance the purpose with the profit. And the last one that multiple languages.
And we're losing you a little bit. I'm sorry, we lost you a little bit. Can you just go back about 20 seconds? So it was the last point I think you were going to make.
The companies to become a certified B Corp, because B Impact assessment is only available in English. We really wanted to involve these highly educated students to be able to help the companies to go through the whole entire B Impact assessment. We've been running the B Generation program for 2 years. It's an experienced also based youth leadership program that is solely designed by us. But we also benchmarked, I think, the Impact Club from one deployed in her school for about 6 to 8 weeks. There are 3 stages of development process, starting from inspire to empower and then engage to lead. There are also 3 stakeholders that are being involved in the whole entire program, including the universities or academic affairs or career development center within the academic institutions, as well as the MBA and the university students, as well as the companies who will be working with the students to go through the whole entire Impact assessment. Inspire stage mainly involves us going into different campuses and schools to be able to do an information sharing event about what is B Corp, what do we believe in, and why B Corp, as well as the information part of the B Generation program. And for Empower, once we recruit the right students to participate in the B Generation program through a very comprehensive selection process, we provide them a 4-hour book and also to get connected with the companies who are willing to work with these students and to complete the B Impact assessment, also ultimately in the long run to be able to certify as a B Corp. And as the last part of the program, Engage to Lead, the students, once they know which company that they will work with, they will do 5 to 7 weeks of Measure What Matters program to complete, again, the 2 very clear key objectives. One is to complete the whole entire B Impact assessment for the company, and also to make strategic recommendations in terms of how to improve their impact performances based on the B Impact assessment completed. We created our own tools and materials to be
15 seconds
to be able to integrate in the whole entire program, called the Building Better Business board game, which you see at the background picture of it. We have more instructional videos available on the link that I have included in this. And then we also have a full deck of the B Generation Facilitator Handbook also available in the link below. Until now, we have been able to achieve all this a lot of events and then be able to continue this program to be able to engage more highly qualified, very passionate students to be able to grow more, a larger movement of B Corp here in China. Thank you.
Thank you, Min. Thank you. Thank you for being up in the middle of the night for us. It's probably too much to ask you to join us for the happy hour after this, but if you're willing to, we'd love to have you and to be able to have you answer more questions. That was so interesting, but just thank you so much for joining us all the way from Shanghai. Next up, we have Jacob Park, and he is an assistant professor at Castleton University and University of Johannesburg. He will be talking to us today about best practices for an experiential impact finance class that, and it's an exercise for a finance class that strikes a balance between theoretical rigor, market relevance, and pedagogical application.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Super. So just a slight correction. I'm an associate professor at Castleton University in Vermont. I'm also a visiting professor at University of Johannesburg. So I just wanted to sort of be clear. So what I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes is really an exercise that a professor who is teaching maybe a course on social entrepreneurship, as well as part of maybe a course on finance, depending on how it's. So the problem that this exercise tries to meet is somebody who is interested in impact investment, impact finance, but doesn't really have a whole class to teach around it, but teaching maybe a course in social entrepreneurship, want to make sure that certain professors get some focus on finance, sort of venture, sort of capital kind of experience. At the same time, do not want to sort of make it a whole class out of it to do that. So to me, so there are several steps that I kind of follow. I've taught this in a class myself, co-taught it, and we're sort of like, and this is something that you could, there's a very kind of open source way to do it. You could do this in many different steps, but here's the way I do it. And I'm encouraging anyone who's interested in either reach out to me or sort of do your own thing in terms of how to do this. So the first thing is before a class or maybe a joint class, depending on how you want to teach it, is assign a reading of some sort. Now I kind of highlighted some materials that you could get open source, including journal articles that you could sort of assign to do that. And the next thing is when you sort of, and this is a kind of a team-based exercise where before I assign the teams, they watch 3 sort of case study videos pulled together from Acumen, as many of you know, is this kind of impact finance organization. And basically from the video gets assigned a team, one team in the US, and 2 other teams internationally. The idea is to kind of, depending on how many students you have in your class, assign them into 3 different teams. And then the idea is that they will be given materials for each to actually develop a pitch. So that's between step number 4, step number 6, where they get together in small teams. And based on the assigned team, they get to learn, for instance, that how they may want to do clean energy venture in Mongolia, as an example, sort of one of the things to do that. So the idea is to get students who normally would not maybe focus on this issue. And this is, again, addressed for more upper level undergraduate, as well as MBA students, or even postgraduate if you're teaching a doctoral seminar of some sort. But idea is to get them kind of doing things to do that. A lot of times, especially in social entrepreneurship kind of case studies, you do a lot of reading, you do a lot of reflection, and a lot of discussion. And this exercise is meant to kind of get them start to work with other people, kind of randomly assigned to 3 teams, but also get them to kind of develop an idea based on the case study where they have to ask for money, which is something I think that we don't really teach enough in a social entrepreneurship class. That a lot of people who are very successful have to get, talk to funders, talk to foundations, and give them a clear idea about what they're going to do, and then ask for a certain amount. So I give them a kind of a template, some guidelines in terms of how much that they have. And again, this is only one slide, doesn't quite capture that. And then the most important thing I would say to end with is that through all this exercise, leave aside at least 10 minutes, depending on a 75-minute class, or longer if you have more than one class to devote to this exercise, to reflect on what they learned from it. And I've done this several times where I've done it, kind of tweaked it, and then again, sort of pivot using the principles of design thinking, my own way to kind of pedagogy. So the idea is that you start with some kind of a background reading and you end with reflection in terms of what the learning goals are, and very clear. And again, and I think that you could stylize this and kind of modulate this any way you want, depending on whether it's upper level undergraduate students or even as far into a PhD seminar, which I've taught in very different ways to do that. So I'm just going to end there and then encourage, unfortunately, I'm not going to be at the the happy hour, but happy to, hopefully there's an email thread that goes around that I could happy to post if anyone wants to get in touch with me about sharing ideas and things like that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacob. Okay, next up we have Michael Pearson, professor and area chair at Fordham University. And we're going to hear about best practices from him today for fundamentally shifting the current business school education model through collaboration with the Jesuit Business School Network, the Vatican, and the United Nations.
Thank you, Emily. I've got 3 minutes, right?
You actually have 4 minutes. I'm going to give you a 30-second warning, though, if you go to 3.5.
So thank you for the time. And I just wanted to let you know, yes, I'm at Fordham University, which is a Jesuit university. I don't know how many of you know about the Jesuits. I didn't know much about them before either. And yes, as Zhao is putting in there, I lead the International Humanistic Management Association as well, where we have been looking at what is the intellectual foundation that we can use to actually shift and transform business education such that B Corps, social enterprises, conscious capitalist groups, economy for the common good groups, or whatever they may be, sort of these alternative ways of organizing are not the alternative, they are the mainstream. And the question that we have been addressing throughout the network is in many ways that which also is inspired by the Vatican, by Pope Francis, by the work that, well, many intellectuals have done across the ages, which we label as humanistic, where we advocate a consilience of knowledge, which is the humanities, the natural sciences, the social sciences actually can converge on some basic principles of who we are as human beings, where we come from, and where we are going. And in the works with folks like David Sloan Wilson and others, we have been looking at this. How does all of this actually lead up to a different perspective of who we are and how we organize and manage, and then put this into a perspective of how we manage. How do we teach management? And I'm looking at management as capital M management. And Pope Francis, I think 3 or 4 years ago, issued a challenge to all the universities, specifically the Catholic ones, and specifically the Jesuit network, which there is, I think, 200 universities across the globe. And there are 90 business schools or so, to really look at what are they teaching. Is that in line with these principles of protecting human dignity, promoting well-being, and figuring out how can this actually matter in a context of one of the most powerful institutions that we have, which is business. And so that shift, I think, is what we've been working on in an alliance with the Vatican, with the Jesuit network of business schools, and with the Humanistic Management Association. And what I wanted to report to you on is 2 or 3 courses that we've redesigned. There is a triple-pronged approach here that we're engaging with. One is really shifting the core courses at business schools and setting everyone up in terms of shifting the way that they are introduced to a subject, whether it be marketing, management, finance, economics, etc. And then the second piece is, what is the program journey for anybody to go through? Like, what are students going to come out of at the end of business education? What are they like? What is their being? And who are they in the world? Are they change makers? Can they be part of the solution? Are they equipped to be taking on the challenges of the world? Whether they are lucky enough to get into a B Corp or they are in a traditional organization, how can they turn that traditional organization into a B Corp? Much like Larry Fink and others are actually saying, basically any organization needs to be a B Corp to be future proof. So in that sense, I'm just going to give 2 examples of courses that we've done. One is a management introduction, and we have basically aligned it around the notion of excellence. One of the principles that the Jesuits have is excellence, magis, and shooting for that, and the protection of dignity, whole person learning, and the benefit towards the common good. So what we did is basically set out the challenges, why management is important. Then how do we move towards an understanding of individual excellence, team excellence, organizational excellence, and societal excellence. And we're using this consilience of knowledge, a humanistic ontology of who we are as human beings and how we work together best as a baseline. What we've
30
seen
seconds, just 30 seconds.
What we've seen as outcomes of this kind of teaching is that depression goes down, that anxiety goes down, that self-reported flourishing goes up, that emotional intelligence goes up, that mindfulness goes up, that all the things that we want to see actually do go up. We have a similar course on economics that Jeffrey Sachs taught with us, and we didn't do the kind of rigorous intervention there, but we are looking to really align all of the core courses in that way, and basically that's what I have to report. For anybody that's interested in partnering, let me know. Pearson@fordham.edu. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michael. Fun sidebar. Your name looks so familiar to me when we've been, just working through our agenda and putting all the names and everything. I thought, why do I know that name? And it finally dawned on me. I went to my bookshelf. You didn't mention this, but this is your book. And I had made notes in there when I was writing my dissertation. So thank you and I'm sure others of you have books you didn't mention as well. And I just love to be in this company. So thank you so much. Okay, last, definitely not least, so happy to introduce Bob Willard, founder and chief sustainability champion and founder of Sustainability Advantage. And he has a lot that he could say and probably fill up more than this hour with his portfolio of work that a lot of us have referenced over the years. But he will present today some details of best practices for the comprehensive framework that he's developed with topical insights and context about progress on sustainability in the business community with a special emphasis on B Corps.
Thank you. And thank you for the kind introduction. I'm a sole proprietor, B Corp. I'm on the B Corp Standards Advisory Council. I've been a B Corp, an award-winning B Corp for quite a number of years. I'm really into this stuff. And I also write books about how organizations can benefit from being more sustainable, and have a few resources that are also helpful to people that are trying to help organizations do that. And I do a lot of talks, 50 to 70 talks a year, and many of them are in business schools. So the decks that I use as the source of the presentations that I give are collected into this thing called my master slide decks, which people can subscribe to. And if they do that, they get access to 6 decks of slides, the ones that you see listed there, and the number of slides in each of them. So there are about 850 slides altogether in all of those decks, which you're encouraged to use any way you want. The context one is, as you might expect, about the terminology swamp that we all snorkel in when we're talking about sustainability, the current state of how things are going from an environmental perspective, from a social perspective, from an economic perspective, the benefits of a green economy. So all of that's in context. The frameworks talk about how B Corps and the BIA compare to other standards, other frameworks that are out there that are used by organizations. That's pretty extensive. The sustainability business cases really get into what's in it for an organization to become a B Corp or a more sustainable kind of company. What's in it for at a company level, as well as how do you cost justify working on areas that you feel you could improve on to improve your impacts, not only your score on the BIA, but your impacts. Leading change is all about how to be a change agent, how to either internally or externally to an organization, encourage them to do things that they're not already doing, and hopefully become more purpose-led and talk about stakeholders rather than shareholders. So how the heck do you do that? So there are 7 steps, 7 leadership practices, 7 paradoxes, and 7 derailers to avoid that are described in that. The climate crisis and green buildings, more information on all of those. So there's a pretty comprehensive group there, and the uses of them, as you can see at the bottom. Of course, you're encouraged as teachers to use them any way you want. They're in PowerPoint format, so you can tailor the slides, put them into your own template, whatever you want, cut and paste. There's also a 7th deck that you get every quarter, because I update them every quarter, of what's new. I refresh them, and I refresh them with information that is from the latest papers and so on. And it's probably a good way to stay on top of what's evolving in the business community around purpose-led organizations. Student resources, if you're a professor, you can post these for your students to use. In fact, you're encouraged to do that, to share them, so that they are able to use them any way that might be useful. If there be impact teams working with organizations and they want to be able to help those organizations see what's in it for them to become B Corps, some of this might be useful. And you might use it as an assignment resource as well as an exercise. So there are a lot of different ways to use them, and limited only by your own creativity. But as I listened to the presentations over the last couple of hours, I could see how some of the context, some of the background, some of the need for you to engage others who haven't drunk the B Corp Kool-Aid yet on all of this, maybe some of these resources can facilitate that kind of a learning experience and help others see the benefits to them and to the world of becoming more purpose-led, purpose-driven organizations than they already are.
Wonderful, thank you, Bob. So that concludes this session, which we hope to continue with as many of you as can join us in the breakout. I guess at this point, I don't know, Kristen, do you want to wrap it up for us?
Yeah, thank you, Emily. And thanks to all of our presenters for being so prompt. We know that was a fire hose of information without time for discussion, although there's been some great discussion here on the chat box.